Well, the time has finally come. We did get a new dev post, and with it, we learned about the course of the next year. And even though we don't have all the details, what a course it is. So, right before the end of 2025, because Riot's gonna be gone for the holidays, we got one last dev update, which overall serves as one big teaser for the next dev update. And so, as always, it all begins with Pabro and Meddler, where they even confirmed that this was recorded at the end of October because Worlds were coming. And they immediately thanked us for all the honesty we gave them throughout 2025. By this, they are very likely talking about all the people who didn't like some of the changes to the maps, as well as all the feedback they likely got on the Hextech chests. After which they immediately confirmed that the next dev update will come in January. Now, connected to their learnings, they did also mention that they learned a lot about the themes for the seasons. They learned that overall people liked the themes. However, they also learned that if they lean a little bit too far into that theme, everything can feel one-sided. And so yes, there is such a thing as too much red in the Noxian theme. And so, going forward, Riot will try to keep the themes relatively the same, but they will try to balance it. And the first theme that will try to do that at the beginning of 2026 will be one that is gonna contrast all the darkness we saw this entire year. And that is because, of course, we are going into Demacia. Which, if you've been following the lore, totally makes sense. So, as part of this season, we will be able to find some petricite things around the map. But this time it is mainly just details to, again, not overwhelm the player with a big red Summoner's Rift. So now Riot is trying smaller things such as petricite turrets and a new Nexus. And then just very tiny details around the corners of the map. But on top of this, as they've done it every season, there will be also Demacian skins, as well as some variety. So for the Demacian skins, they did show us Petricite Thalia, Nautilus and Cho'Gath. Now, I have to say that this is a great idea for a skin line, because it perfectly fits what is happening in Demacia. You see, in Demacia, we have the Durant family, who is a family of people that are creating more Petricite constructs, meaning that Galio is not the only Petricite Goliath. Though he is special because for some magical reason he is the only sentient one. And according to the theories, that might have to do with the fact that someone from the Durant family made a deal with a demon. Anyway, when it comes to the skins, Thalia is representing someone from the family who is one of the sculptors who is creating these things. She is, technically, one of the sculptors in this skin. But then we have Nautilus, which seems to be just a part of a Petricite citadel, but the best one has to be Cho'Gath. This is legitimately just a giant Petricite construct, and you can even see the walls of Demacia underneath him for scale. Honestly, this skin was such a good idea. But yes, because Riot learned that people don't like it when all the skins are based on the theme, there will be also some variety skins, and Riot even teased a new skin for Morgana. I don't think they said what skin line this is specifically, but it could be something like the Crystal Rose. If not, the Battle Queens. All of those skin lines can kinda get similar. But then Riot also confirmed that the big cinematic, which we do get at the beginning of every year, will be themed around Demacia. And I just hope it is also gonna be made by Fortiche. And as they talk about this, they show us some champions, namely Garen, Lux, Jarvan and Galio. So we can assume these are gonna appear in the cinematic. But then they also mentioned that the Demacian season will be going back to the classic old Demacia. And Meddler even mentioned that some people might consider it the golden age of Demacia. And let me tell you, we need context. Because he is talking about Demacia before the Major Rebellion. Which does absolutely make sense, because that's where the storyline ended with Zahen. We know that all of these stories, which are happening after Arcane, are happening after the Noxian invasion and while Swain is taking over Noxus. Which means that in the stories after Zahen, Swain should be sending Katarina to Demacia, which is where the Major Rebellion would start. Time-wise, it all makes sense. Now yes, theoretically, Xin Zhao is supposed to be there for the Major Rebellion, but who says it can't be LeBlanc? Anyway, the point is, here they are saying that the golden age of Demacia is when Demacia was really racist. After which Meddler makes a joke about it.
But it was a beacon of hope and a bastion of justice.
Hey, Andrew, are we forgetting something?
I don't think so.
You sure?
Anyway, while that is it for the introduction part about Demacia, what they don't mention, although it was later revealed on Reddit, is that yes, Shyvana will also get her VGU later in Season 1, meaning it is likely gonna be in Act 2. But that is it for the season, so now let's go into gameplay changes. Here we get right Endstep and Freak, where they talk about the main focus of the new season. Essentially, it is going back to the classics, such as neutral objectives, turrets, minions, stuff like that. And to underline this, there is now a new mechanic that makes every lane feel different. But we'll get to that. You'll see that the main focus on this season is really just to let more players play Summoner's Rift. The rules are gonna be simpler, everything will be more streamlined, but things are not really gonna change with the depth of the gameplay. At least, unless you're a jungler. In that case, the game might feel slower. Anyway, the first change is that in Season 1, games will start about 35 seconds faster. This means that if you wanna pee during a loading screen, tough luck. But after that, to help people learn the simple concepts of Summoner's Rift, such as warding, there is a whole new mechanic for that. They are introducing something they call phalites, which are essentially small places around the jungle where if you place a ward, the ward will have a greater vision. These lights are supposed to teach players how to properly ward, which is why they will only be placed in the good spots around the map. And as the game becomes longer, new spots will open. Next, because throughout the entire 2025 there was a bit of an object overload, and there was way too many pro teams who threw the games at Atakan, Atakan is getting removed. I mean, it totally makes sense, he canonically died. But yes, because Atakan is getting removed, Baron is moving back to the classic 20-minute spawn, but also all dragons and epic monsters will be slightly tougher to kill. The purpose of this is to give the enemy team a little bit more time to react. Also, the feats of strength are gone because once again, yes, that was a very Noxian mechanic. And instead of the theme being all about first blood and everything else they do in the Reckoning arenas, the Demacian theme is sieging, with one of the mechanics that will help this being the crystalline overgrowth. Here, after a set period of time of a turret not getting hit, it will get crystals all around it, at which point, if you hit it, it will take a lot more damage. Yes, that does mean that every turret essentially has Demolish. And because of that, Demolish is still a rune, but it was turned into a classic 3-hit passive. After this, to help with the idea of sieging lanes, all turrets will now have plating, but it shouldn't increase the overall gold in the game, rather the gold will be spread across the plates of the turrets. On top of this, minions will also start spawning faster in the late game to really push for the sieging, and once the turrets around the Nexus are gone, they will still respawn back, but with reduced health. So yes, it is gonna be a fun season full of split pushing. But to make everyone else feel special, not just the split pushing top laners, Riot is introducing a new thing which they call role quests. Essentially, with these, every role should properly feel different. And so, everyone will get their own quest, which should be the normal things such as killing minions, killing turrets, or killing monsters. But of course, everyone will have different quests depending on what role they are. And depending on what role you are, you will also get a different reward from the quest. For example, top laners will now have a special new teleport as an extra summoner spell. Of course, you can still pick the teleport as your normal summoner spell, but if you do, it will get enhanced. This should help top laners have a bit more agency over the game, but to make them feel even more special, top laners will now have increased XP gain in general, and their maximum level will be brought up to level 20. How is that gonna work on Kayle? I have no idea. Probably nothing's gonna happen after the final ascension. Next, mid laners have a new reward of the level 3 boots. aka the boots you got from the feats of strength, which were now removed. And on top of that, mid laners will also have a faster recall. Next, because bot lane is all about carrying the game in the late game, their rewards will be just bunch of gold. Not only am I talking about getting a flat amount of gold, but also increased gold gain in general. But because this means that there is a good chance that the AD carries will cap off on items faster, once they complete their quests, they will get one extra item slot, because their boots will be put into a new passive slot. Next up, because apparently supports already have a pretty good impact on the game, not much is gonna be changing there, but they will also get a new passive, which is a control ward. So yes, you will not have to buy it every time yourself. And lastly, that brings us to the jungle, which is only getting worse. And that is because apparently jungle did have the biggest impact on the game. And so, the monsters in the jungle will be slightly tougher, the clears will be slightly slower, and after you complete your quests, you will get more XP from the jungle monsters and a little bit more movement speed in the jungle. And that's it. We'll just have to see how all of this lands, but at the beginning, it's gonna be a nightmare for balance. Now, because the role quests essentially work as a mechanic that puts everyone into their own lane, it is also preventing people from lane swapping, and so the lane swapping mechanic that reduced XP is just gone now. So at least that's something really good going into the game. After which they also talk about some good old items that are coming back. Namely, Hextech Gunblade is back. There is also a new item called Scepter of Bonking for now, which is for AP fighters. I'm gonna assume it is for someone like Echo, who either has to go AP assassin or just a tank. Then there is Blood Sphere, which is a new item for a lot of Omnivamp. There is a Snowbow, which gives AD carries an item that helps them with peeling. And in total, there should be 9 new items, with the crit damage going back to the good old 200%. But that's it for gameplay changes, so next we go back to Pabro and Meddler. Here they continue talking about Ranked. Now, throughout this year, Riot managed to tackle 2 big problems. Ranked queues went down, and griefing detection worked really well. Specifically, the queue times went down by about 40%, and when it comes to the griefing detection, well, we all know it's working out. Anyway, in 2026, Riot wants to focus on 2 areas specifically. That is, while also still dealing with all the other things. And those 2 things are mismatched teams and long queues. So first, there is an issue which a lot of people think is an issue, but under the hood, all is good. And that is the fact that sometimes in your gold games, you may just get a player who is bronze. Now, under the hood, the hidden MMR says that everyone is on the same skill. The issue is that the bronze player just started playing ranked later and they didn't get to their rank just yet. But in the eyes of the players, they were gold, he was bronze. And so now, if you queue into a game where that happens, there will be a new indicator that tells you that that player has not reached their rank yet. And so the truth is, they are not bronze. In fact, they might be way higher than you. Now next, still talking about queuing, duo queues will now have new rules. Now, if you have different ranks between flex play and duo queuing, it should all spill into each other. Because with the previous system, there was a good chance there might have been a massive gap between the 2 ranks. And so now, at least the hidden MMR will look at how good you really are. So if one of your ranks is higher, it should be easier to get the other rank onto that level. Which brings us to a really big change that is really gonna help all the people who want to grind ranked. So, because there are some roles that are simply more popular than others, whenever there was someone who was auto-filled in a major role, it felt like you were just gonna lose immediately. So first of all, there is a new system that is dealing with the autofill in general. Now, if someone on a team is getting an autofill, the system will try to make sure that on the other team, the same role is also autofilled. And if the system fails to do that, because there is simply not enough players in the queue, at the very least, the system will put the same amount of autofills onto both sides. I'll be honest, I can't believe that was not the case in the current system. But on top of this, there is a new addition which Riot calls the Aegis of Valor. When this system kicks in, if you get a C rank or higher in your game as an auto-filled role, if you lose, you will not lose any LP, but if you win, you will get double LP. What this system does is that it is encouraging you to actually do well on an auto-filled roll. Because in the majority of the cases, if someone got an autofill, they just dodged the game. Or they held everyone else hostage until someone dodged it. Also, to reduce this kind of toxicity in the picking, people will no longer be able to ban a hovered champion. Thank God, because this was the only reason I never hovered my champion. Also, if you are in a master game and above, dodging an auto-filled game will simply count as a full loss. But also, if you dodge an autofill, the autofill will be carried over into your next game anyway. Next up, to also speed up the champion select in general, Riot is getting rid of a lot of animations and stuff like that, which should cut it down by about half a minute. And you know what? That is precious seconds. But then there is also the biggest change which a lot of people, which is not that many people because it is only on a high rank, will appreciate. And that is the fact that high-ranked players will be able to duo together once again. And Riot is allowing them to do that because now they have a really good system in place that can detect when people abuse it. Previously, Riot had to disable it because people were boosting each other. Well, now we know the new system can detect boosters really well. But that should be it for the news about ranked. So next, Swiftplay. So apparently Swiftplay was not swift enough, which is exactly what my feedback was. And so Swiftplay will also get all the updates from the new Rift except for the quests. And because the games felt too long, everyone will now start at level 3 with a lot of gold. Death timers will be lower, minions will spawn faster, there will be a cannon minion in every wave. And killing an enemy champion next to your minions will empower the minions to rush down the turrets faster. Remember, this season is all about sieging. But also because new junglers were still getting overwhelmed with objectives, Swiftplay will not see any grabs or the Herald, and it will only focus on the dragons and the Baron. After which, we get to the great news, which has to do with WASD. That's right, many people thought that WASD was cancelled because Riot hasn't talked about it for a while, but now, nope, it is live today. That's right, ever since Riot went silent, they managed to squash about 100 bugs, including the infamous bug with Nunu being able to go wherever he pleases. But they also listened to the feedback from the players, and so now there will be a new keybind available, which will just give you a diagonal movement. At first, Riot was hesitating, but with a little bit more testing, they noticed it actually worked pretty well. But after that, they simply improved everything about this system, including wall sliding, the dynamic camera, and there is new improved auto-attack system. In fact, when it comes to the camera specifically, you will now be able to set the speed of the camera, but also there is a new scouting mode that will allow you to temporarily just look around for ganks and stuff before it snaps back to you. And so with all of these changes, the WASD system, or as they call it, the WASD system, will go live right now, and it should be up in all queues besides ranked or normal draft. And that is simply because this system can get finicky and Riot really needs to tune it before a full launch. Which means that yes, the team is really paying attention to the balance. And they are literally tuning it as people are playing with it. So we'll see if all hell breaks loose, because the Roblox players are coming. Anyway, then we go back to Pabro and Medlar for one last time. Here they honor their deal and they talk about who's gonna be in an Amumu costume because of their pick'ems, which they talked about in the last dev post. Though we did not learn who lost, but it seems like Pabro did. After which there is one more reminder that we will get another dev post in January. And with that, that's kinda it for the news. And I'll be honest, that was a lot of news. Especially for a dev post that is supposed to be just a teaser for the next season. But hey, now we know that the next cinematic as well as the next season will be all about Demacia. And so now, if you have a look at all the features we got in the 2025 seasons, it makes sense that all the Noxian stuff is gone. Because hey, lore-wise, Demacia is gonna be overriding all of it.